So yeah, Nikki, I want to welcome you today. And Nikki is with Beacon CoWork. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do at Beacon CoWork? And I know you have a whole other job as well.
I do. So at Beacon CoWork, I am the co-founder. My business partner and I went into business about 2 years ago. We decided to open a co-working space because at the time, there's only one other co-working space in Reno, and I didn't love their new space. I had been a member there, and so I chatted with the owner of that and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about opening one. What do you think?" And got his kind of perspective on it. And he's like, "Yeah, we need more of this in Reno." So we ended up
Cool.
opening the co-working space about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now. And um, have done really well. We really love our space. We really love our community. So I manage kind of the day-to-day operations, a lot of the administrative stuff, the financials and things like that. We do have an accountant, but I manage, how we're spending money, where we're spending money, membership
Sure.
management, and some of the marketing as well. Even though we have outsourced parts of that in the past, I'm
Sure.
solely responsible for that for the most part. So that is my co-working business. And then I also am a senior clinical project manager for a clinical research company that does medical device research. So we do everything from lab testing all the way through IDE trials that would get FDA approval for medical devices. And medical
Wow.
devices could be it could be a certain type of gauze that has a drug on it, or
Yeah.
to help stop surgical bleeding, or it could be
Mhm.
anywhere from that to like a left ventricular assist device, which is a heart pump that's implanted inside of the body. So the
Wow.
term medical device has got a pretty big array. So I am a project manager that manages a lot of the logistics of these studies and our teams and resourcing, invoicing, billing, things like that. I've also done clinical research for the last 12 years. So that is sort of my bread and butter typically. And then the
Yeah.
co-working space was sort of just like a side gig that I did and kind of got me into the entrepreneur bug.
Cool. Very cool. So between the two positions, what are you really seeing that's the most affected, let's say in your world with the whole shelter in place and the COVID issues or whatever you want to call it that's happening right now?
Well, given the current environment with everybody being at home, obviously the co-working space is intended to be a place where people can go who don't want to work at home. So we're seeing, a lot of our members, are folks that already work remotely and they have the option to come into Beacon CoWork. So a lot of
Mhm.
them are, most of them are not coming into the office right now. We are fortunate that we have such a loyal group of people that only a couple people have, for financial reasons, pulled out of their membership right now. So
Mhm.
pretty much stable with everybody kind of remaining with us, but we've definitely seen a downturn in anybody inquiring about space. We have a
Of
vacant
course.
private office right now, and we have a few members that have decided to take a break while this is going on since they are completely at home now. I've given
Right.
certain folks the option of continuing to go into the office. For us, it's, the office is technically locked 24/7, and so we are
Mhm.
technically closed to the public. So we do not have guests coming in. Folks that do have private offices and memberships there are coming in still, some of them, but very few of them and very seldomly. We do have
Yeah.
one group that has a dietitian, which is considered an essential
Mhm.
business. So they are still coming in to do their nutritional evaluations and things like that. But for the most part, we're really seeing we've seen a lot of people kind of subscribe to our newsletter, and I think that they're
Nice.
waiting to see what happens when
Mhm.
remote work becomes a little bit more common and they don't want to be at home
Right.
anymore and they have the option to not be at home anymore. So I think that we will, after this is over, see an uptick in our membership, just because those folks that are used to being at home or maybe weren't used to being at home but are now working remotely really won't want to be at home as often as they thought they might want to work in their pajamas. It does get old after a little while. I've been a remote
Yeah.
worker for over 10 years now, and it gets a
Wow.
little tiring to be at home all the time. So it's,
Mhm.
and then with my regular job, I work in medicine, and so we really aren't seeing a slowdown. We've seen a shift in some of our activities.
Yeah.
But we are definitely not seeing a slowdown. We're working on some COVID specific projects, even like ventilators and things like that from some of the big medical device makers. But so my work has definitely not slowed down quite a bit at all. So if anything, I am probably busier. And with working at home, like you really don't take your work never leaves. And so, if I'm, if something is kind of nagging me, like at 10 o'clock at night after my son goes to bed, I will be sitting at my computer and working and just kind of nailing things out and getting things done. So there's definitely that. It is a drawback of being at home is that, I'm not separating my work life at all. So.
I think that's one of the things that because I've been off and on remote working like you for 10 plus years. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciated the most shifting to working at Beacon CoWork was that flexibility of still having the remote, but also the capacity to walk away. Because like you said, when you're working from home, it's always there. And especially if you don't have the capacity to have, say, a designated room that's an office that you can close the door and walk away from, it is that constant kind of just there, almost, even if it's in the back of your mind, it's just kind of always there. So I really appreciate what you said about thinking you're going to see the increase in remote work, or that was going to be one of my questions is, what do you see changing in the way that we work as we're moving forward? I agree with you. I think we're going to see a whole new wave of it being much more acceptable, if you will, to work remotely, because I think a lot of companies that never could wrap their mind around how that worked have now been forced to. And I think it seems to be really opening up that realm, which could be really great for Beacon CoWork.
Yeah, and I think that there's potentially two sides to it. So I think, given the sort of emotional climate of what's happening right now, some folks may be less productive at home. And so it could be on the flip where they're seeing that their workers are not as productive when they're at home. Given the climate and given sort of, the emotional weight of what's happening right now, I think is definitely going to play a factor in whether or not some folks are more productive at home or less productive at home. But I think, if people are smart, they will realize that this is an opportunity for them to sort of prove that they can be just as productive as at home and, have that option in the future. But, some people are more productive at home because you don't have the commute time. You don't have the time that you're expending, getting ready in the morning and picking out your outfit. That's all mental energy that you're draining from yourself. And you just get up, grab your coffee and your jammies, get to work. And, there's value in that. Some days I work a lot more because I'm not expending that energy just commuting or getting ready. But, I think that it could go both ways. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are some neat things in innovation that you've been either experiencing yourself through the different things or you're hearing of other companies do that are kind of standing out to you during this time?
Yeah, I think the most fun thing that I have seen is, I work remotely. A lot of the folks that I work with work remotely, and they have started implementing these virtual happy hours, which is really fun because, even though we already worked remotely anyway, it was sort of this, I think leadership decided that there needed to be something that was a little bit more, valuable for people on a personal level. And so they implemented these virtual happy hours, which, for me, they're on Central Time and I'm out on the Pacific Time. So I get to end my work day a couple hours early and have a glass of wine. But I think that people are finding these new ways to connect, and, it may not be through business per se, but I've also seen a lot more folks inquire about our business, and, they want co-working spaces. Co-working spaces are typically on a very small margin. We operate at, we really don't make money in this business, right now anyway. 2 years in, we're not really making a ton of money on this at all. And you can hear my small child.
Yes.
I think he's out. But I don't know where my husband is. He's probably trying to take care of things. But, I think some of the people are reaching out. They want to connect with other folks more. And I think, with co-working, like I said, it's, a very small margin, but other people, have been kind of reaching out and saying like, hey, we really want to do, a virtual event with you and your members about, wellness, or, how are people handling their anxiety here, or, things like that, where people are reaching out about that, or they're reaching out about more, business opportunities where they'd like to have all of their mail service come to our co-working space and have us manage their mail service. But we're seeing people kind of reach out, and I think because more and more businesses are kind of pulling those email lists, and I've gotten emails from, a bajillion people that I've never heard from in probably 10 years that have my email address somewhere, everyone is kind of pulling at their emails. We've kind of stepped away from that and tried to do more interactive things. I have seen people do a lot more interactive things like Zoom meetings or live Facebook videos, and trying to connect with people. And I'm more in contact with my family right now than I have been in a while. And I'm fairly connected to them, but I think people are just kind of grasping for that emotional connection right now, since everyone is kind of sheltered down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if that's necessarily an innovation, but it's, people are weighing that and kind of using that to their advantage by also jumping on the virtual connection train, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So do you have any kind of pieces of advice that you would offer to other remote workers, let's say, or things? I mean, I love the happy hour concept. I think that's so fun. What other things or tips maybe might you have for other remote workers who are either this is their first time, or maybe they're veterans, but, as far as staying connected and dealing with even almost separation anxiety for those that are remote workers for the first time?
Yeah, so I somebody else asked me this question, which I think is really interesting, and it took me a while to kind of find my niche when it came to, working remotely. But the three big things for me are, set your schedule. So have a work schedule where you are either in your office or at your desk for a normal amount of time during the day. Don't feel like you have to work 10, 12 hours a day, work your 8 to 5 or whatever it happens to be, and then put work away. So dedicate that time, get dressed. It really makes a difference in your mental, your mental mindset is, getting dressed for work. Like, so if you get dressed for work, you turn your camera on when you see people, it does help you focus on the meeting itself. Like if you actually have your camera on, it is very easy to get sort of lost in the noise when you are not really engaged in the meeting. So I would say get dressed and turn your camera on for that one. And then the third one is, just make sure that you're talking to your colleagues on a regular basis. So, if you're more of a task-based worker where you have your set activities and those are your activities, make sure that you're engaging with your team as well, because they're also probably looking for that connection. But I think those are my main three, get dressed, set your schedule, and talk to your team.
I love that. That's great. Thank you.